Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 26 of D.A.R.C, or Does Anyone Really Care? The mini review series where I'm just doing a quick evaluation of certain cars that are featured on Gran Turismo 6 that many people seem to overlook, or at the very least underappreciate. Now, you may own some of these cars, but maybe you haven't used them in a long time. Maybe you haven't bought them in the first place because you didn't even notice them in the dealership, didn't want to potentially waste the money on a car that may be useless, or just assumed that the cars just weren't any good. Now in this episode we're featuring, as you can see, the Hommell Berlinette R Coupe. It's a French sports car, it's mid-engine rear-wheel drive. Quite an interesting looking little car, kind of like a bit of a visual hybrid between a shrunken Ford GT with a bit of Lotus Esprit in there. Quite an interesting looking car. It has significantly less horsepower than you'd expect from a mid-engine rear-wheel drive sports car. It's less than 200 horsepower stock, surprisingly, but it's kind of an advantage in some ways because it allows you to use it in the kind of underappreciated but highly competitive sub 200 horsepower sports car category against vehicles like the Vauxhall VX220, the Lotus Elise, Toyota MR2, that kind of thing. Now, this is a 47,000 credit car, so it's pretty well priced considering it's a semi-obscure, kind of an exotic almost, despite its lack of power. Fully tuned, it's a 521 pp car, which is pretty high, and it has 357 horsepower fully tuned, and it weighs in with the full weight loss package at a very impressive 830 kilos, so it's very lightweight, and it does have a decent amount of power fully tuned, around similar kind of power to say a lightly tuned Skyline or Supra. So for a car that only weighs 830 horsepower, that's pretty decent power to weight ratio wise. Now PP, as we said, is just over 520, it's 521, which is reasonably high for its power. Many cars of that PP would be putting out more power than that, so is it a competitive car? Is it any good to drive? Because obviously being lightweight and mid-engine, that leaves a lot of room for potentially temperamental handling. Well, overall it's actually a very good car to drive. Now, French sports cars aren't generally known for being that great. I mean, there aren't that many to choose from, and I'm talking proper sports cars, not like the Peugeot 406 Coupe. I mean proper sports cars like Venturi type territory, which unfortunately isn't on Gran Turismo anymore. But this one actually does the French sports car industry proud. It's a very good little car. I would say it actually has better handling than the Lotus Elise. In comparison to the Vauxhall, not so sure there, because the Vauxhall does have pretty good handling, but the Lotus I personally find to be quite a temperamental car, whereas this car, the Berlinette, actually handles really well. The handling is quite reliable, it's quite consistent, the grip is pretty decent, it will drift, but it's not hard to counter it, and it actually makes a pretty good drift car if you want it to be. And the performance, as you'd expect from its power to weight ratio, is very good. The brakes are also very good, but that's not surprising considering it has a nice and low centre of gravity. It's quite a wide track for a small car, which helps stability, and also there's not that much weight for the brakes to stop, so it's not surprising that it has good brakes. It would be more surprising if the brakes were bad, to be honest, but they're not, they're very good. Acceleration wise, it can keep up with many sports cars that do have significantly more power. Obviously it's not a Huayra eater, but it will keep up with, say, some of the lower TVRs or even the Lotus Esprit. Not necessarily a fully tuned Esprit, but vehicles like that, it will give them a good run for its money. And like I said, handling wise, it's actually very good. Now, many cars such as the Lotus Esprit are actually quite temperamental. Unless you've got them on the top grade tyres, they are quite temperamental cars, especially with the light front ends that they can sometimes have. This car just doesn't have that. The weight balance feels very, very good, and the overall drivability of the car is excellent. Most cars like this that are kind of specialist sports cars require some fettling with the handling. They require quite a few laps to really get a feel of what the car's going to do. This car just doesn't. You get in it, do a couple of corners, and you've instantly got a feel for the car. It handles really, really well. Top speed wise, you're looking over 200 miles per hour, so it is a very quick car, and that's without NOS. So it is a seriously quick little sports car. As we already said, the acceleration is pretty good, the brakes are pretty good, and the handling is, I would say, very good. So overall, I mean, a 47,000 credit car, it's not much money to lose if you actually don't like the car, and potentially it's a very small price to pay for a car which could be, and is, in my opinion, a genuinely usable alternative to cars such as the Lotus Elise, the Esprit, some of the lower model TVRs and the like. So if you haven't tried out this car, I would definitely recommend that you do so. And that's it for this review. So I'll see you next time, and as always, thanks for watching.